Welcome back everybody to our latest video from EICMA 2025, and we're at BMW for the most hotly anticipated adventure bike, I'd say, for the 2026 model year. This is the F450GS, a bike that they first teased last year at EICMA with a prototype, but this year we've got the full production version and we've also got the full production specs. And so in this video, we'll go through all the details with everything that you need to know. Now, we already knew that this would be a 450 parallel twin. TVS, the Indian manufacturer, built all of the, well, have built the BMW 310s. So the R Naked, the GS Adventure bike, but they'll be taking this bike on as well. And so I assume they've co-developed this new 450 engine, and it does sound fairly interesting. It's actually 420cc, so a little smaller than the F450GS name might suggest, but all the same, the performance figures are really quite impressive, with 48 horsepower peak at 8,750 RPM, so the maximum possible in this A2 class, more than quite a lot of the competition, and then also a healthy peak torque figure of 43 Newton meters at 6,750 RPM. So yeah, it ought to be able to get a decent lick on, despite being a relatively small capacity bike. Certainly sounds a little stronger than the KTM 390, if I remember correctly, and definitely more than like Himalayan 450, the liquid cool version. So it's going to be very competitive in this small to middleweight adventure segment, which is filling out with bikes over the past year or two. Thing is though, it's not just the performance figures that sound of interest, because one of the other key features is that it gets a 135-degree firing interval, which makes it completely unique on the motorcycle market. I don't believe there's anything out there similar at the moment. I'm not sure if it's ever been used in the past either. But they say they've gone for this specific configuration because what it gives you is a little bit of vibes and soul and character, but still in a way that's actually relatively smooth and pleasant to ride. So they say it gives it a great balance, and I'll be very interested to see how it feels when you actually get one out on the road. This one's a little bit of a surprise, but it actually gets something called their ERC. I can't remember the exact meaning of that acronym, but it's basically an auto clutch, but it's mechanical, so it's not like an e-clutch from Honda where it's electronic. This is a fairly traditional centrifugal clutch, like I guess the Recluse clutch that you might find on dirt bikes, and also MV Agusta have used something over the years called SCS, or Smart Clutch System. The basic idea is it's just twist and go. So you open the throttle, and as the clutch spins faster and faster, it starts to engage. And so it should make for very easy operation of the bike without any additional weight from a complicated electronic system. Then you can also fit this bike with the shift assist or the up and down quick shifter. And so they actually say with these two things combined, if you so wish, you don't have to touch the clutch because you can just pull away with the twist and go and then snick through the box on the quick shifter, and there's absolutely no need to dip the clutch. That said, there is still a clutch lever if you want it. They give an example of lifting the front wheel with a bit of a flick of the clutch to get it to wheelie over obstacles off-road. I'd also suggest that some of these bikes that use automated clutches, or the AMT bikes, even the DCT bikes, can feel like they lack a little bit of nuance when you're doing slow speed maneuvers, and so actually a bit of clutch might be reassuring, gives you that control. And so it'll be interesting to see how this rides, and also how it does compare to some of the more techie interpretations of this sort of tech, let's say, like the e-clutch from Honda, which they've just announced today is going to be more widely available across their lineup. Now, before we get onto the rest of the specs, a massive thanks to Kalamoto for supporting the channel and making this trip possible. Kalamoto's a motorcycle-specific navigation app. They've got their own algorithm that seeks out the best twisty and curvy roads. And so if you plan a route, you're not just going to get the most boring straight road to get to your destination, but actually the most engaging and the most fun to ride on a motorcycle. Now, we've actually got 25-year memberships to give away on these golden Kalamoto tickets. So if you're at the show, come find me. Hopefully I'll have one to give to you if I don't run out. But for everybody else back home, there's 10% off down in the description below, so do check that out if you fancy riding some better roads, as we all do. And once again, a massive thanks to Kalimoto for their support. Anyway, onto the tank capacity, and anyone expecting sort of globe-trotting 1300 GSA levels of range might, on the face of it, be a bit disappointed, because this bike gets a 14-litre fuel tank, which doesn't sound particularly generous, but I will point out that in the official consumption figures, it's actually a fairly efficient engine. So they're saying 3.8 litres per 100 kilometers traveled, and so they're saying at their official figures, if you ride steady and try and hit those numbers, you should still get 350 kilometers on a tank, or just over 200 miles. So I think for this stature of adventure bike, it's probably acceptable, and it's actually fairly in line with the competition. I've mentioned the KTM 390, that gets a 14-litre tank as well. Now, it does get a selection of riding modes, so fitted as standard, you've got rain, road and enduro, with various levels of throttle response. You've got dynamic traction control, you've got the ABS Pro, which is lean sensitive as well. You've got dynamic brake control, you've also got MSR, or what is also known as engine drag torque control. And so it is a healthy suite of technology, and very much in line with what you've come to expect from BMW systems, a lot of their signature features there. On top of that, you can pay a little bit more as well for an Enduro Pro riding mode, and that's specifically set up, they say, for kind of knobbly tyres, so you might have specific settings for the traction control. And they also say it allows you to disable ABS at the rear if you do want to slide the back, for example, for those tight turns on loose surfaces. As for the frame, well, I'd actually say in some ways this might look attractive to previous gen GS owners like the 1250s and 1200s, because it actually gets a bit of steel trellis, so it looks almost a bit traditional in that regard. And they say it's specifically designed for this bike, and also designed to be fairly short in the wheelbase to help with a bit of a sense of agility, and that's going to be specifically handy if you are riding this bike off-road. Now, suspension is from KYB. I think normally BMW will put their own suspension in, or it'll be unbranded or own branded into most of their bikes, but because these are made by TBS, they probably buy it in from KYB, for example. So you've got a 43mm upside down fork up front, a monoshock at the rear. I believe the shock is preload and rebound adjustable, whereas the fork, from the looks of things, you have to upgrade to what they call sport suspension in order to get any adjustability. And if you do so, you can then change the rebound and compression damping. So definitely one to look at if you are thinking about pushing this bike a little bit harder off-road. And they also confirmed that the whole lot weighs in, ready to ride, fueled up at 178 kilograms, which will make it sound quite tempting for a bit of off-road use. Again, my biggest comparison is the 390, and that also comes in around that mark. I think it's roughly 176, so absolutely competitive, and really does sound quite desirable, I think, to anyone who finds large capacity adventure bikes a little daunting perhaps, and also maybe for those who are relatively new to off-roading and want something that just feels a touch more manageable. Then you've got a 19-inch front wheel, a 17 at the rear, so same as the bigger GS's, and maybe not as aggressive as a 21-inch front like you'll find on the KTM, but it should give a nice balance of on and off-road capability. And what it also means is they can swap between two different wheel setups and not have to offer two completely separate bikes. So it comes as standard with the cast aluminium rims, but you can pay extra again in the accessories catalogue and get the spoke wheels, which you'll see on this bike behind me. They do look much better, of course. It definitely plays into that adventure bike image, but also they lace to the edges, so they're tubeless, and that should mean, easy puncture repairs for the majority of riders with a little plug. Brakes are from Brembo. It's a single disc up front. It's a 4-pot Brembo caliper on a 310mm disc. A single pot at the rear with a 240mm disc, I believe. And so, not the most abrupt braking setup perhaps, but also I think appropriately spec'd for this size and power of bike. Ergonomically, they say the standard seat height will come in at 845mm. I said this could be a good option if you want something fairly approachable. Maybe that will sound a little bit tall, especially to shorter riders, but the good news is you've got options to go both ways. So you can go down to 830, I believe, with the low seat, But also if you want to transition easier between sitting and standing, if you do ride a lot off-road or you prefer that taller stance, or maybe you're a bit tall yourself, then there's a rally seat which takes it up to 865, which is nice and tall without being, you know, dirt bike lofty. Bars, you can change those by 20 mils, so there's an additional riser that can get them up by 20 mil. You'll probably want to fit that if you're going to be stood up a lot on this particular bike. Foot pegs are off-road biased, removable rubbers, but there are accessory enduro pegs that they look a bit stronger, perhaps a little grippier as well. And so all round, it sounds like a bike that you can roughly tailor to the sort of riding you want to do, and also your own personal bodily dimensions. Tech-wise, we talked a little bit about the riding modes and the rider aids. It's a 6.5-inch TFT dash. It's very typical for, you know, BMW's bikes. It also looks like it's going to get roughly the same switchgear layout, the same Wonder Wheel type navigation system through the menus. There's connectivity as well, so if you do want navigation and media and stuff like that integrated into the dash, then you've got that option. A USB-C socket and also heated grips as an accessory if you do want to make it a little more toasty on colder days. Now, unfortunately, like so many of the bikes that we're talking about today, we don't have a price. Now, scratch that. We were just walking between stands. We just left BMW and I just decided to double check on my phone, and there actually is some pricing. So the basic spec is 6,990, the exclusive 7,290, the sport, which is the red one we were looking at in there that gets some upgrades like the adjustable suspension, is 7,440, and the top spec kind of rally looking one, the trophy, is 7,760. So certainly a bit more than the competition, a lot more than a Himalayan, for example, that starts at, I think, just under 6 grand. A KTM 390 is 6,699, I believe, as well. But it does look good, and so maybe it's enough to justify the cost. Anyway, let us know what you think of the bike down in the comments, and whether you think it's worth a little extra versus some of the other brilliant middleweight adventure bikes that are currently on the market. I'll put our playlist on the screen now to keep up to date with all our content from EICMA. And also a massive thanks again to Kalamoto. There's the discount code in the description. Do hit subscribe if you've not already to see all the videos as soon as they go live. A massive thanks for watching, and I'm going to go and double check my other scripts to make sure we got all the details right. See you in the next one.